Morning. And welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is the past does not equal the future. We live as though we experience a linear continuity from the past to the future, and that things don't change. I think we live generally under a fundamental assumption that things don't change while hoping for change, and also affirming and knowing that the only constant is change. It's interesting, that paradox that we reside within. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. And welcome to everybody else who's joining us. So today, we're going to be talking about change and how the past does not equal the future. And while we go forward hoping for change, but thinking that things are going to remain the same, indeed, we can bring about pretty dramatic change and transformation. And anyway, it should be fun. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, all your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling as you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So it's funny how we kind of live in this paradoxical space where we keep hoping and pressing for change while at the same time believing that things stay the same, right? That the patterns of our past are going to necessarily present themselves in our future, that we live on this timeline of continuity, and I think we have a really, really interesting relationship to change. So let's just look at this idea of the past equals the future. You know, another saying that maddens me comes to mind, actually, and that is, the way you do one thing is the way that you do everything. And I had a client say that a little while ago, and I was like, I call BS. And they were like, whoa, why do you say that? You know, because this was part of their lexicon, I guess. And I gave them an example from their lives. They're a creative person, and also they have certain things that they get kind of kind of obsessive about, or nervous, anxious about. And so I said, well, when you're creating, are you in the same state as when you're anxious about this, that, or the other thing? And they said, touche, like two very different things. They're engaged in different activities, and they're not doing the activities in any way the same way. So it's the same thing with this past equals the future. What the way that we've been, using the way that we've been in the past to determine and actually often dictate the way we are in the present or going into the future. And what so many of us do is we take our past from behind us and we put it squarely in front of us to then walk into, to thereby recreate the patterns of the past. But the question is, do we really need to do that? And the answer is no. Once we recognize these patterns, once we can clear and purge ourselves and free ourselves from these patterns. It doesn't mean that it doesn't take work. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that it's going to be comfortable. This journey of transformation takes a lot of courage and grit, to be willing to face the shadows. It's not light and breezy oftentimes to be moving through those shadows, as I've been talking about for the past while, is going through the darkness to get to the other side. But it can be done. And it's not by making the darkness wrong. It's not by making the past wrong, because as we judge and exile those parts of ourselves, what we're doing is we're creating more fracturing. Well, what we need to do is to find a way to be able to face and embrace those parts of ourselves that are wounded and damaged and hurt and ailing, and coax them into wholeness, to nurture them into healing, to find a way to integrate and metabolize and embody the completion of whatever those patterns, injuries, behaviors, beliefs might be. So we can create a future that's generative rather than reiterative, rather than something that is just repeating the patterns that we've lived in. And the tool to be able to do that, or the path to be able to do that, is waking up, is awareness, is recognizing. I guess they say you need to recognize, the first step to healing is recognizing that there's an issue to heal, or complete, or dissolve, or whatever we transmute, whatever we want to call this process of transformation, that we need to be able to recognize it, to become alert to it, to then address it. And what we're looking at is a broadening of perception, because without that broadening of perception, perhaps the past then does equal the future. because we're pulling those patterns into our future and walking squarely into them and through them. So the question is, what are we choosing for ourselves? Rather than becoming or experiencing ourselves as victim of things beyond our control or beyond our scope of influence, perhaps when we recognize that we create our experience, this is a biggie, because oftentimes when we look at creating our experience, we start feeling a sense of guilt, shame, or blame because we don't know how we're creating our experience. So we feel at the effect of it. And rather than feeling at the effect of it, we can look with a more objective eye to say, just because I'm creating my experience doesn't mean I'm creating it consciously. And there may be patterns at work that I'm unaware of. And again, bringing these patterns to our awareness, recognizing, reflecting upon our self, our sense of being, looking at our lives, noticing repeating patterns, finding ourselves like taking responsibility, owning. I don't know necessarily why this is happening or why somehow I keep creating this or how, but I'm gonna generate some curiosity and explore it. Like, how is it? What's going on that this same thing keeps happening? To be looking at ourselves, our way of being, our ways of thinking, with an inquiring, and I want to say objective, but I don't know that that's even possible, but with an inquiring eye, can yield lots of really valuable information, can open the door to lots of insights that if we were not compassionate in this inquiry, might be accompanied by pretty severe judgment. You know, like we have all these ideas about how we should be, how we should behave, how other people should behave. And in looking at our own behavior without that compassionate curiosity, we might be inclined to be extremely judgmental about our own behavior, which becomes an impediment to actually being willing to see what's there. So it makes it harder to face it, to address it, because we want to deny it, we want to push it away. And being willing to see what there is to see is probably the first leap of courage that we need to take in this process of deeper transformation. So there are a couple things that I talk about a lot. One is being willing to know what we know, being willing to see what's there to be seen. And it can be very confronting to look at ourselves with, I'm going to use this word, critical, but not judgmental eye. Critical meaning like critiquing or recognizing what's there. Discerning is a better word, actually, than critical. To look at ourselves with a discerning eye. And we often have these judgments. We don't like what we see, so we ignore it, or we bury it, or we pretend it doesn't exist, or we make ourselves wrong and bad. And all those behaviors contribute to ensuring that the past does become the future. I don't know about you, but I have a growing commitment to living into the future rather than out of the past, and to exploring what that looks like, because that's where our greatest potential is. If we're looking to the past, that's already done. That's already done. And when we judge what's possible based on the past, or judge what's possible based on the ideas that we're projecting into the future, we're constraining our potentials to our known universe and our known conceptualization. And just as an example of the past not equaling the future, we can look at the very real possibility that in this moment of historical retrogressive laws around women and women's rights and bodily rights, we're facing the very real prospect of having a female president. And just the prospect of having a female president that has a really good likelihood at this moment, that's a huge break from the past. So things can change at any moment, and the future that we generate can open up possibilities that we've not yet imagined. And I guess what we're having here is a conversation based on a willingness to embrace the unknown, to recognize that we don't have to keep creating the same patterns of dysfunction that we may have experienced in our lives. We don't have to keep creating it over and over and over again, that we can actually experience something new. And it takes a willingness to open ourselves to the unknown. And we can meet the unknown with anxiety, and or we can meet the unknown with excitement at the opportunity and possibility that it can make available to us. That we've learned in quantum physics, anything is possible. It may not be likely, but anything is possible. And with that anything, because we have maybe a conditioned tendency to fear the unknown, we tend to relate to that anything with anxiety and fear rather than excitement for, wow, let's see what's going to happen next. What's possible. So Rosalind says, an exercise to do this, to experience a new way, perhaps, while doing something repetitive like washing dishes. That would be fun. So what would be a new way to wash dishes? So it's funny that you say that, because I actually have been cultivating a new way to wash dishes, of all things. Um, uh, a friend came to my house and said, at one time we made a meal and they were like, where's the dishwasher? I'm like, you're looking at the dishwasher. So a new way to wash dishes for me is to be looking at how little water can I use while washing dishes? How can I wash dishes in a way that conserves water? Because I had heard, and I don't know what the foundation of this statement is, but I had heard that dishwashers use less water than washing dishes by hand. And also have been thinking a lot about van life, where there's very limited supply of water. So what would it look like to wash dishes in a way that conserves water? And I'm exploring that. And in exploring that, it brings me present to something like washing dishes. And something silly like, well, what's possible? How can we generate something new? Interestingly, through limitation. So constraints. What I notice is that constraints are often the seed of creativity. And when we put a certain constraint, like when we're doing art sorts of endeavors, creative endeavors, when we give ourselves a constraint, that opens up all kinds of possibilities. When we don't have a constraint, it can be intimidating and sometimes paralyzing. So maybe we'll talk about constraints as a path to freedom or something sometime soon. But let's leave it at that for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to like, follow, and share Enlightened World Network and me. And the links are in the description. And as always, it's really uplifting and a gift to be able to share these ideas, conversations, musings about being human and the human condition. And I'm just so grateful. So until next time, so much love to you.